Want to be more confident while you navigate your personal and professional life? Who doesn't, right? Well, stick with us because we're going to take you on the ride of a lifetime.
You're tuned into Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Tune in right now.
Tune in right now. Hey, thank you guys for tuning in. Welcome to Super Soul Sit Down, the after show for Super Soul Conversations, Oprah's podcast. I'm sure you guys all know. So we're just going to dive right on into this thing. I am your very excited and super articulate host, Jamie Alexander. And to my left, I have my superstar, Haley, in the building.
What's up, everybody? Again, Monday flew by, but lots to talk about, so let's get to it.
Yes, Monday did fly by. I remember waking up this morning and I did a bunch of things, and then I was like, oh, it's only 10:30, and I felt so cute. Then by the time I showered, washed my hair, got groceries, I was like, oh my God, it's like 4.
Was it 3 o'clock? Yeah, pretty much. But then, of course, when we're at work, you're like, it's been 3 minutes. How is this going by so slow?
Feels like 2 hours. Yeah.
But speaking of someone that's obviously an expert in their field, we got Mr. Bob Iger.
You guys, Bob Iger. Even if you didn't hear the podcast, you will get gems, jewels, tips, and tools from this podcast, okay? Because he just put it all together for us. He, those of you who don't know who Bob Iger is, he was the CEO of Disney. He was the 6th CEO. He was there for 15 years. He was right after Michael Eisner. So to be CEO of the Walt Disney Company after they just acquired Pixar and all these things, you got to be
40+ year career.
Yeah, you got to be quite the man because he was CEO at ABC first. So he got together with Oprah and they had a super soul conversation about a bunch of things when it comes to your journey. So we're going to talk about that. But as a reminder, we want you guys to stick around to the end of the show for our special segment called Own Your Soul, where we talk about things and ways that we can take into our week to own our soul and, evolve and be better in our lives. So you'll want to tune in for that. So what did you think about this episode as a whole? I'm blown away. What did you think?
I did think for what we've been talking about, which I'm so appreciative of our conversations, but I really did like the switch up of a more business focused and then obviously diving in deeper to how he dealt with things in his business. And I think a lot of times we see men in suits and we kind of think that we know what their life is like or how they might be, but there's much more backstory to Bob. And I thought it was really cool that he took this opportunity to write a book and open up. And yeah, I felt like I gained a lot of insight, and it also makes you recognize that mistakes are part of your journey and you need to make mistakes to learn what success means and how to appreciate success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really loved hearing that because that's probably been one of my personal biggest struggles is I had to learn to take failure, and it's not been easy at all. I mean, I've beat myself up pretty bad over basic things where it's like, no, look at this man. His salary is $66 million a year, and even he messes up. That's just what happens along the way. And I'm so glad that he decided to write a book like this, which I am going to read. I got 2 books to read now from this show, but I'm glad that he didn't wait until everything was all over to reflect and then write this big book. He wrote something now that was very valuable and gave me tons of insight.
And it shows strength because he knows that these are things he's going to have to address now. It's not, like you said, it's not like it's over and he's 90 years old and doesn't have to address it. He's ready to talk about these things now and own his truth. And there's one thing I've been learning lately. It's that you have the power, you have your voice, and use your voice.
Yeah.
And be prepared for what that might mean. But a lot of times I think it brings much more good than we think it will bring.
And I've been seeing that again in my own life and I always believe in this, like our purpose. So yes, it looks like Bob Iger, it seems like it'd be clear what his purpose is. He's doing all these things for Disney. He's an amazing CEO. He's got a lot of integrity and all these things. However, it is the aftermath, I guess you could say, of his career path that's really providing a new sense of purpose for his life. Because for him to just be able to write this book, which he said was really hard for him to do and open up, but once he did it, it was okay. It's going to bless so many more people than I'm sure he probably ever imagined when he started writing. And that's the good part. Yeah.
Where should we start off with first? I really liked that he had this whole 18-year project that crashed, and he talked about how you have to be comfortable with failure. And the shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando and how Disney was the first target. These are really heavy things that he had to deal with. And they were thankful with Disney that they said the shooter left because of higher security. But that's very intense. And when you think about it, obviously he's not responsible for that. But when you sign up to be face of a big company, regardless if it's your fault or not, you're going to need to provide people with some comment. You're going to need to show up and be there. So I just thought, that's a tough spot to be in, basically.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think, just for fun when we're on social media, it's like #boss, this, that, and the other. And it looks so amazing to be the one in charge until some stuff happens and you really have to be the face. You have to take the responsibility. You got to get with your PR team. You need to be sympathetic. You have to be wise. You have to be a leader. You have to be accountable for all these people. I mean, there is a level of self-awareness and characteristics that you need to have as a person, which I feel like he has. Oprah's like, are you going to run for president? Because I will personally go door to door.
The highest compliment you could.
Come on.
Most of us were rooting for Oprah to be president. And
Yeah.
It's funny now hearing her kind of be in our shoes and say,
I would
I wish
campaign.
so badly I can't imagine a higher compliment than Oprah wanting you to be president. That's amazing. But he did say some little nuggets of wisdom I wanted to write down, where his keys to success with Disney, he said taking risks and evolving were one of the biggest reasons he is where he is today. And he said, I didn't want to be in the business of playing it safe. And it sounds fun, like you said, cute little bio on Instagram, but what is that saying? What does that actually mean? And I think it's having the courage to mess up and realizing that, like I said before, these mistakes that we make are the lessons. And it's this weird thing where no one wants to fail. No one wants to feel rejected or feel like they didn't pull through or do what they were supposed to do. But a lot of times those paths take us to the direction we're supposed to be going in, and we need to learn to handle those things first.
Yeah, and actually I wrote that quote down. So if you guys didn't see, we have the cover of the book available for you, A Ride of a Lifetime, just so you guys can look at it, download it on Audible, get the hardback. This is what we're talking about today with Robert Iger. And that stood out to me too when he said, I didn't want to be in the business of playing safe. And to add to that, he said, I wanted to be in the business of creating possibility for greatness. That just turned me on instantly, because to be honest, that's what I think about. It's like, I don't care about losing the job. I don't care about looking like this. I don't care about any of that. What I need is to create the possibility of greatness. Like, what I refuse to do is get to the end of my life and think about all these things that I could have done. And he added
heard that one of my favorite quotes ever. It's saying the definition of hell is at the end of it all being faced with the person you could have been. And that always gets me every single time, because
I could throw up just thinking about
right?
it. That's
I
terrible.
don't want to. I would rather mess up so badly. And I know it's easier said than done, but truly, I would rather have so many failures than sit and wonder what I could have done with my life.
That is the worst torture. And he, another thing he said that really sealed the deal is we need to be comfortable with failure, and we need to know how to process failure. You need to know how to process failure, because failure sucks. It hurts. It's hard. It's makes you feel like this and that. But even that word process, I really love vocabulary. And when just the way he laid it out, it is a process. And you've got to be able to tell yourself the right things in order to survive failing. And
you know what is twisted and beautiful about failure is, for some reason, I feel like that brings us together more than success.
It does.
I think even though I'd like to say that we can all say we've been successful at some point in something in our lives, but when someone is so honest about failing, or someone's just so vulnerable and open about their truth, for me personally, I feel like that connects me more to someone.
Yeah.
Just that realness, that rawness. And even though they're exposing something that is not their highlight reel, it's the human in them. And I think that's where him being so real and raw, now I don't see him as the face of Disney. And he still has that title. He's still extremely credible and deserves all the accolades he has, but we see him as so much more than his title. And if that's, we've talked about this before, people are much more than their job. There's a human behind the title. And at the end of the day, the title is not who you are. And I think it's very important to, especially when it's not good. It's easy to feel good about yourself. And, you might be CEO, you're having a great day, everyone loves you. But what about those moments where you're not doing so well?
Yeah.
You still need to remember, okay, this is a rough patch, but this is who I am. Whether it's your family that you go home to after it all, but just knowing your real value, your true core, I think that's what makes a person who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And it matters most, like you said, like CEO and all that is a title. But who's the man or woman behind that machine? That matters oh so much, even in the little things that he shared. Like, I really connected to this episode a lot. I appreciated him so much. I cannot wait to read this book. But he was saying no one wants to be led by a pessimist. And so there's all these little nuances and flavors of our characteristics that are required to be a leader, whatever the title may be. Whatever, even as a housekeeper, you don't think you have to have some kind of a heart of service or kindness behind that? Even if it's something so small, you don't want to be slapping the bed together. You want to put it together with a sense of pride for yourself and for,
That was what I struggled with a few weeks ago, just realizing that I wasn't extremely happy to maybe be going to the certain job I was going to that day. But I also realized me going in with that mindset made it so much worse than it had to be. So exactly, whether you're living your dream job or whether you're doing something because right now money's tight and this is what you have to do, your mindset plays a huge role in how good or bad that day might be for you. And it's hard. It's not always easy, but I definitely think you have more power in that situation than maybe we think we do.
So much more. And it is about who you are. Like a quick example, I'm working full time now, and that's something that I didn't think I'd be doing again, especially, with all the entertainment stuff going on. However, I'm blessed because I'm in a space where no matter where I go, I show up as Jamie. I'm Jamie Alexander before I'm leasing associate, cashier, whatever the thing's gonna be, and I find when I embrace that and use all of me to just even put in a job that might be basic or something I'm not crazy about, it does yield results that are reflective of me. So for an example, like I've gotten to throw a couple events at my job, and that's what I like to do. That's not what they hired me for, but because that's who I am, it shines through in the position. Right. And that's totally what I'm seeing with him. Especially we mentioned the alligator situation, which was horrible.
Well, what I like that he says is he said he looks at problems like a puzzle.
Yes.
And I thought, how cool is that perspective to, instead of saying, oh, what a terrible thing, being like, okay, this is my life and the pieces might not be all together, but I know that I have the components and now I just need to figure out how to put them together.
Yeah.
Puzzles take a while, so it might not happen that night, but you see that the pieces are there. You see that you can make it whole again. So with the situation Jamie's referring to was at Disney, unfortunately, there was a terrible incident with an alligator who took a child's life. And we think, obviously, this is not Bob's fault. He didn't do this. But like we said, he's the face of Disney. He's the man that this is going to come back to. He's entitled to take responsibility. And he even said that there are other people that said to him, you don't have to address this. But he felt responsible as CEO, and he spoke to the family directly. And he said to Oprah, as we can imagine, this was the hardest phone call he's ever had to make. Because that's one of those things where when anyone experiences loss, you really can't fix it. You can't say anything.
There's no words.
Yeah, to bring back the loss of that person or whatever the case may be. And he issued a public statement. He fully said this was absolutely terrible. And I think just showing his character he could have had someone else handle it. He could have just put the statement out and not been face to face or phone call with that family member. But he spoke to them and he said that he would do everything in the power to not let it happen again. And I believe that although, like we said, he can't bring the child back, that must have been at least some sense of closure, some sense of, at least I know this person cares and feels for what we're going through. And I think that can just really help the healing process to have that for yourself mentally, just to know that it wasn't, it's someone cares. There's humanity behind it. And it's not just a corporation that issues out a statement to look good for the public, but because they genuinely care about that family.
Yeah, and that's where his character really shines through and things like that, being able to sympathize, being able to be empathetic, because he has children and grandchildren. And, I do like that. We have to put that human side behind things, that it's not just about the money. And, he's right. He said to ignore or minimize a problem is not going to make it go away. So his ability to use his characteristics to run things under his title is just I can see why Oprah's like, because he gives me Wayne Dyer vibes, and I love my Wayne Dyer, but it's like, I would want him to be president too. Somebody who has a heart, someone who's there, present, somebody who Steve Jobs trusted with his cancer results before he barely even knew the guy. That is an energy.
We gotta talk about that for a little bit. Yeah.
What did you think about that situation? Let's tell the audience.
The fact that, first of all, Steve Jobs, he's over here knowing he's going to lose his life, and he's still thinking, let me help someone out with a business deal. Like, that's crazy to me. But Bob decided that so he gets this news that Steve Jobs is diagnosed with cancer, and he ultimately gives Bob the chance to back out of this situation. And Bob says that he said, no, I'm going to stay with him. And he put he just put his character over money. And that's when we talk about humanity and who he is as a person. He valued that relationship with Steve as a relationship from person to person, rather than how would this look as a business deal? Could I lose money? And I believe that's a really incredible quality of him, that he did that. And I think that was the ultimate reward when at the funeral his wife said that Steve said he loved him. And I think that trust is so much more than a business relationship. That's literally what you take to the grave. People like that. And I feel like I'm really happy he got to hear that. And it does speak a lot to him, especially with his father. And his father suffered with depression, and
that was hard
at a young age, he said, I won't be this person.
Yeah, it wasn't about the money, the riches, being the biggest, whatever. It was just like, I can't get to the end and be as depressed as my father was. I can't go through that.
And he said that, you see him as a brilliant CEO. But what I love about this, too, is I think a lot of kids, and I was one of them, didn't feel particularly like a genius in high school. But he said education clicked for him in college. And he said he never wanted to experience the same sense of failure his father felt about himself. So even though we see this tragic situation with his father, I believe it has, when we say failure contributing to success, I believe that experience for him, that upbringing, did ultimately shape him into such a strong figure, the man he is today, because of the hardship he went through as a child.
Yeah, and not wanting to, determined not to live a life of disappointment.
And sticking to that goal he set for himself.
Yeah, that's very powerful. I'm so proud of him. There was one other thing that stood out that I loved, especially because I lived in Japan for a few years, but I think the word was...
You did?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I lived in Okinawa for 3 years.
Oh, that's so cool.
I love it. So he said this word was shokunin. I think I have that right. Shokunin, which is the relentless pursuit of perfection, but not imperfection the way we think. It's not accepting mediocrity and not giving up, being better for the greater good of everyone. We need Rob Iger to step in the shoes of CEO, especially over something like Disney.
Right.
We need you, Haley, to step in the shoes of whatever it is you want to do, because your heart and your pursuit of perfection in the sense of who can you bless, who can you help, how do I use my gifts to change the lives of others. Like, we need everyone to be activated in that, because that's how you get the ride of the lifetime type of gems and jewels to share with people so they can evolve to be their best selves too. We only live one time. His father's not going to get his life back and a second chance to maybe not be so fearful or whatever it was. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we have such an opportunity.
I will say that I'm somewhere in the middle with this, because I very much believe that he's in a positive place of saying that he wants to strive for perfection in a good way, not an obsessive way, but just in the concept of, I always want to be better. How can I evolve? But I do feel like it's important to stress that the goal shouldn't be to be perfect, but for your intentions to always just be better. So I just don't want that word perfection.
Yeah, it's not like that sense of the
that,
Yeah, they actually specifically said in there it wasn't that sense of the word, like, quote unquote perfect, because realistically there is no such thing as perfect.
It's subjective.
Yeah,
your perfect might not be my perfect.
Exactly. So there's no way, but just the not accepting mediocrity. I wrote this down because, to be honest, I'm kind of obsessed with it. Sometimes it's to my detriment, but most of the time it's to my benefit. But I cannot live a life of mediocrity. I'll never give up.
Well,
ever.
I also believe that's you knowing who you are, and you know that you can be this person. So to feel yourself at any level lower than your capability, you don't stand for it. So I agree. It's like finding that, don't let it drive you crazy, but also I'm a fighter, and if I know I can do something, I'm going to do it.
I have to.
And that's what makes you who you are.
Yeah. And I believe, everybody has their own level of that within them. And I know that's part of my mission and purpose, is to create space where people feel comfortable to explore that, to share it, to dive into it, to ask questions about it, and whatever they need to do to experience that flowering, if you will, that opening up of, the totality of who you are. So I love it. It's so powerful. Were there any other thoughts that you had before we
I
jump?
did want to address what he said about the Roseanne tweet. That was obviously
Oh
a
my
big
God,
scandal.
yes.
And I really liked that there was no part of him that was trying to sugarcoat it. He said what she said was wrong. And this is when it even speaks so much more powerful that Roseanne was the #1 hit show on
Yep.
ABC at the time. And what I loved about this particular part of the podcast is he said, you need to make decisions or the world will make it for you.
That sounds
And
frightening.
That was just, well, he
I
knew
wouldn't
that,
want that,
if I
yeah.
don't speak up, if I don't speak my truth, that I don't agree with this,
This
then the world's
narrative is
gonna,
gonna-
the world's gonna interpret what they think he would say.
Yep.
So he took his power, he took his voice, and I really commend that authority and just that leadership. I think he
Yeah.
did the right thing.
The authority and leadership without the thoughts or feeling inhibited by what will people say? What are people going to say about the money loss or this, that, or the other?
Because he
did
just
what was
believed
right.
his truth.
Yeah. Ooh, that's powerful. Are y'all walking in your truth like that? Are you willing to go against all odds to say what you need to say? Okay, just kidding. Kind of. No.
Real though, right?
That's for real though. Like, we've got to be able to trust ourselves, and thank God, Robert Iger does, because he's been able to do amazing things, and we're gleaning from it now. So
It's honestly kind of fun to learn. It can be
Yeah.
a rocky journey, but when you get to that place where
Feels good.
you really see why things happened, it's kind of like really cool to sit back and reflect on it, and then you feel better, you feel powerful, and it encourages you to keep doing that in all aspects and trusting that, all right, when the next thing goes wrong, let me figure out what this is doing for me, and just shift of perspective can change a lot.
yeah, everything, even again, the perspective on failure. Like, okay, maybe me speaking my truth at this moment, it could or couldn't be right, but it's coming up in me, so I'm going to say it, and whatever happens from there,
Do you know what's weird when we talk about those reoccurring messages?
Yes.
Lately, mine has been that my inner voice already knows.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I thought that was cool, where I'm like, okay, so now I'm just being like, what is she saying exactly? But
Yeah.
I do find peace in knowing that, just like we said, with the puzzle pieces and approaching your problems like a puzzle, just knowing that you do have the components in front of you. It's just figuring out how they fit together. But you do know.
You know. You know. So all of you who are pretending not to know what you know, now is the time to act like you know.
And
So
if you
with
don't
that-
know, now you know.
Now you know. So with that being said, this is a perfect time to jump into our special segment, Own Your Soul.
Your journey to become more inspired and connected to the deeper world around us starts right now.
Yes. So this is the segment Own Your Soul, where we talk about ways that we've gleaned from whoever we were speaking with, who Oprah was speaking with, and how we can take some of these lessons into our own lives. So what do you think, Haley? What is something that you learned from this, or how are you feeling? Did something stand out to you and, sound like something you'll take into your week that will help you evolve?
I believe it's kind of the reoccurring message, and this ties in a little bit with the special segment I had was just talking about how with his father, he said, I don't know what it was that he saw in me, but he believed in me. And I don't think you can really believe in yourself until someone else believes that there is value within you. So I think it's just that message of, I always want to make sure I'm someone to encourage other people, just like I would want to be encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole idea of just support the people around you. If you want support back, you have to be a good friend to other people, and you can't expect people to want to care about you if you don't care about them. So I think it's just always reminding myself, like, even sometimes I feel myself wanting to tell my story and talk about my day, and I have to
Right.
say, no, sit back, listen to them. This is their turn to talk, and it's not all about you, and you need to be a good friend to other people. So I think just the message with his dad believing in him, I want to be a person that my friends know that I believe in them, and my family members know that I believe in them, and I want to be that person to them to encourage them.
Yeah, no, I love that, and being cognizant of that. I think for me, it'll just be simple. I want to get better with my process of failure, because I've allowed it to stop me from moving at times because of things, how things may have turned out in the past.
That fear.
Oh yeah, sometimes I'm just terrified and I'll fight myself. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, who wants to sit up there and fail again? I'm sick of it. No, I'm not doing it.
Remember our last
And I'm like-
discussion, fear over love?
Yeah.
When you simplify it like that, I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes you're like, love, go. And just
yeah,
cut the negative voices.
yeah, it sounds good. But I know that the process of failure is something that if I can embrace that, which I have on some levels with past failures, but if I can accept it in a way where I can move forward with the future failures that are going to happen, then I think that would allow me to make more moves.
I agree. And I like what you said, embrace the failure.
Yeah, I got to embrace it.
Because I guess
I'm not.
if we say that if we're practicing what we preach, where the failure are blessings because they're blocking us from somewhere we're not supposed to be going, then we should appreciate them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's a process.
It is.
We're all on it. Just like I kind of switched up our segments a little bit, but this is the ways that we're going to own our soul. And if you guys have something that you've gleaned from what we said or from the podcast, please comment below. We would love to hear ways that you're going to move forward powerfully and abundant in your own voice this week. But before we get out of here, we have some news and gossip and our Instagram poll. Take it away, Haley J.
So I kind of already gave the news up a little bit, but just talking about his relationship with his dad and how, again, it really shaped him who it was. This is an article from CNN. So he just talks, like, obviously he has a lot of accomplishments. He's 40-plus career, $250 billion company. He holds a lot of power, but just the human in him coming from this was once just a little boy who grew up with a rough family life. And for whatever reason, even though his dad was struggling so much, his dad believed in him, and that meant everything to him.
God, that's nice.
So I thought
and
that
I think
was
we need that. Boys
yeah, it was
need girls
incredible
need it.
to see that, you know, they say your childhood, which I would agree with, affects so much of who you are to this day. So I think that even though his dad went through such a hard time, I think it was amazing that he still let his son know how much potential he saw in him, and that made Bob Iger so determined to not be what his dad was.
And you know what? Side note, rest in peace to Diane Carroll. She passed away this week, but she had a similar story where she was like, my parents spent so much time telling me how great I was. Like, by the time I went out into the world, like, she is dynasty queen, okay? Like, everything about her is so fab, and there's been people, oh, you're stuck up. Okay, I'll be that. Like, I know I'm great. You don't have to. So instead of that, oh, maybe I shouldn't be as stuck up or whatever, her parents stood behind her and really instilled that in her.
It's so important.
It's
and
so
then
important.
With the Instagram poll, just this concept of failure, I wanted to turn to my Instagram followers and say, do you believe failure is essential for success? I personally absolutely do. Yeah. And I think even just appreciating it, and success feels awesome. And if you feel like you earned it, it's everything, you know? If you're just like getting things handed to you, you lose the value in that. But 87% said yes, 13% saying no. So I personally have failed a lot, but I know it's taken me exactly to where I need to be. So I believe that all of those steps were important, whether they're failures or not.
Right.
It's up to me to determine that.
I agree. And again, with the comments, for those of you who may be part of the 13% that don't think it's important, I'd love to hear from you and understand your perspective. I definitely voted yes, because without my failures, like I said, I've been having an opportunity lately to really share with others how I overcame things. But if I didn't have anything to overcome, I wouldn't have been able to bless them. It's really nice to be able to do things for people. So
and again, that's where we connect, you know? Yes. Those are the moments where, okay, you're a human, you're being real with me. You're not sugarcoating it. So, like no one wants that. It's such a twisted game. No one really wants that at the end of the day. Like let's just be real.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Another great conversation for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, girl. This was a good one. And thank you guys all for listening. So you know what to do. You can find us here same time, same place next week. I'm your host, Jamie Alexander. Please check me out on my Instagram at Jamie Alexander. Always sharing gems and jewels. And I'm on my YouTube now too. So you can go on to YouTube and follow my name. Yes, just sharing away. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Jamie Alexander.
And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at HeyJ, HAYJ_. We'll see you guys next Monday.
Toodles.
On behalf of our BHL staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in to Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Check out our Black Hollywood Live YouTube page for even more great programming and amazing content, and be sure to subscribe and like our channel when you do. I'm your BHL host, Nakia Monet, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom or at Black Hollywood Live. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.